Okay, in part 4 on this module on delegation, we're going to be talking about when not to delegate. We've already talked about reasons to delegate and how to delegate, and now we're going to talk about some reasons why maybe you shouldn't delegate. What are those situations? So what are some of these situations when we maybe should not delegate? Uh, Here's one example. If you as the leader, the one who is delegating, if you want control and like having control about what gets done and when and how, if you want control over an activity or an event, and you want full control, it means you're not really ready to delegate and give that full responsibility and authority to someone else to do it. So if you want control, don't delegate. You better stay in control and authority and you do it, right? That's one reason not to delegate. A second reason not to delegate is if you want the glory. If you as the leader want all the credit when that thing gets done and it gets done well and it's successful, if you want the glory and the credit for it, well, then you need to be the one doing it. Don't delegate to somebody else if you want the glory. The third reason when not to delegate is if you happen to be a perfectionist or if you fear failure, right? And that means if you delegate something to somebody else and you're just worried constantly they're going to do something wrong, they're going to make a mistake, they're not going to do it well enough, and you're uptight the whole time and anxious, and you're probably transferring that anxiety onto the person that you asked to do it and checking up on them and, oh, wait a minute, you didn't do this, and what about this, and oh, are you sure about that? If that's you, then you're probably not at a point where you can delegate that particular thing either. Another reason when not to delegate is if you don't have enough patience, right? So if you don't have patience to let that other person that you delegated to complete the tasks in their own time, in their own way, with their own way of doing things and with the level of quality they do it, if you don't have the patience to just let that play out and see how it works, then don't delegate to begin with. One more reason why not to delegate is if this is an obvious one, but maybe there's just no one to delegate to. Sometimes there just isn't anyone to delegate to, and therefore you got to do it. You can't just hand it off to somebody else because you don't want it. If they're not the right person to do it, then don't do it. And that's similar to this very last reason when not to delegate, which is sometimes you absolutely are the right person to do something. You're the one who should be doing something. You should be the one who takes the responsibility and has the authority to take some action or complete some activity. If you're the right person to do it, don't try to dish it off on somebody else for whatever reason, whether it's because you don't want to do it, you don't have the time, whatever. If you're the right person to do it, then just do it. All right, so on the other hand, to whom should you delegate? Now we know when not to delegate, but who are the ideal people to delegate to? And some of these we've already talked about here, but I'm going to mention it again. You want to delegate to someone who has the right knowledge and skill set, someone who has the skills necessary to do the job, right? If they don't have the skills, you shouldn't be delegating to them. And here's a funny little cartoon that goes with it, where we've got a king interviewing for a job, and the interviewer says, so what else can you do besides reign? Right? I need to know what your skills are so I can know what kind of job I can get you to do. Second type of person to whom you should delegate is someone who has the right passion and purpose. All right, that's the commitment side where they feel passionately about what it is you're asking them to do. They're excited about it. They are like, yes, I want to do this. This is important to me. If they have that sufficient level of passion and purpose, then boy, yeah, they're a great person to delegate to. It doesn't mean that everything you delegate, someone has to get passionate about. But when you see people who have the skills and they have the passion, you might want to consider delegating that thing to them, right? Here's an example of passion and purpose. Again, here's a principal talking to one of his teachers, and he says, it's true that each week you give 100% to your teaching, but you're giving it 20% per day. In other words, you're not really that passionate about teaching. You're not giving it your all each day. So that's an example of not having the right passion and purpose. For right attitude and confidence, this is the other part of the situational leadership model, right? You have to have skills, you have to have commitment, and you have to have confidence. So if the person doesn't have confidence in doing what you've asked them to do, if they're really unsure of themselves, if they think, oh, I'm not sure if I can do this, I have a feeling I might fail, I have a lot of questions, I'm really not so sure of myself. If that's the situation, then they're probably not quite ready for delegation. They probably still either need support, or more coaching role of leadership. according to the situational leadership model. So right attitude and confidence. And here's a little funny thing here with Moses splitting the Red Sea here. And the person to the left of him has a snorkel and mask on, and Moses says to him, a bit more confidence, please, right? Make sure people have the confidence they need. The last type of person to whom you should delegate is someone who has the right workload, meaning they don't already have too much on their plate, but they have the capacity to take on more work. If you're trying to delegate to somebody who's already overloaded, either they're going to fail at what you asked them to do, or they're going to take on what you've asked them to do, and they're going to fail at the other things that they're already supposed to be doing. So make sure that you're delegating to someone who has an appropriate workload level that can take on that work. And one last little funny example from Dilbert, where the employee says, I barely have time to avoid the work I already have, right?